Welcome to Pain to Power. I am Maria, your host, also known as Brown Girl Interrupting. And here, thank you for joining us today in this show brought to you in association with the iRant Network, where we are talking about building our toolkit of all the ways that we can heal as we are learning and growing in community together to take our pain and turn it into power. So, as you're thinking about that, I was really thinking this week about this idea of how healing is a choice. We make the choice. When we're going through things, we can either choose to take the route of healing and make the choices, or we can sit in that pain and fester and give it life. So as you're thinking about your experiences and as you're thinking about your own healing journey, I offer you this idea of thinking of your own choices. What choice are you making? Are you cultivating that healing journey for yourself? And that could be as small as, for me this week, it was literally making it to the gym the mornings before I went to work. And it was part of my healing journey because I'm healing my internal body in order to heal my mind and my soul as well. And that has been a big step. But every day, it's a choice. So whether your choice is as small as going to the gym or as large as shifting your mindsets, like my guest today has been doing and speaks and writes about, it is the way that you are going to continue to cultivate your own peace in order to heal in this journey. And thank you for joining us to continue doing it together. I am so excited to welcome today's guest. She is the poet, author, and educator, Miatta Harris. Welcome, Miatta.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Brown Girl Interrupting, for having me tonight on your platform. This is an honor.
Thank you for joining us today. And I am super excited for us to talk more about your book, Walk Confidently into Your New Season, which I love it. You are walking confidently into today. And so how's your evening been or your day?
It's been pretty well. Thank you so much. Yes.
Good. Well, I'm
How
glad. I'm
about
glad.
yours?
It has been very busy, but I am choosing the mindset of staying in a positive space and continuing to move forward. And it helps to have some great company and good conversations. I'm looking forward to this. So we are going to talk about your book, but before we get into your book, one of the reasons I have you on this show and the show itself is to talk about the journey of pain to power. So what does that mean for you, this idea of turning pain into power?
What that means for me is despite our hardships, despite our trials that we may go through, no matter what we go through, we can turn that situation, turn our narrative around and turn it for something good. So I think that's what turning your pain into power means for me, is that in life we may go through some roadblocks, we may go through things that are out of our control, but having the willpower and the strength to keep going, that's how you can turn around and turn it into a power.
I love that. Having that willpower, right? And I think you addressed it, right? Is that we're all going to go through something. So
Mm-hmm.
it is a matter of finding that willpower inside ourselves. And you have definitely done that with this book, which is Walk Confidently into Your New Season. There's definitely some willpower in there for sure. But so tell me a little bit more just of how you got to this journey of writing and then to move it into writing a book and publishing it.
Okay, so I have been on this journey for 10 years now. My journey started when I was 28 years old. And, as a young adolescent growing into adulthood, you have so many dreams, you have so many aspirations in life. And then when you realize things that you may have dreamed about doesn't come into fruition, for me, it started to look like, okay, what is happening in my life? Like I had like a timeline when I'm supposed to be here in my life at 25, at 28, at 30, boom, boom, boom. And literally everything that I set my mind to, it occurred up until I was reaching 30. So I was like, okay, what is happening? My goals are not, because I'm very goal oriented. I'm very focused. If I put my mind to something, I know what happened. And that's pretty much what happened my entire life up until I was approaching 30. And then when my goals weren't happening, both professionally and personally, I started to develop some negative habits, meaning like negative self doubt, self sabotaging. And those doubts grew and grew because I kept focusing so much on it and things that were happening in my life. Now that I look back on it, it was a huge deal. But because of my mindset, my um, fixed mindset, it grew into something that was like turned into pretty much anxiety. So I kept worrying about the unknown, worrying about my future. Where am I going to be? And I just felt like I was in a space that was very lonely. A lot of my friends, a lot of my relatives couldn't relate to what I was going through. They had their own families that they were growing and developing in. And I just felt extremely alone and had nobody to turn to. So my writing was birthed during that time period. And it really did give me a sense of peace when I felt like I didn't have anyone else that I could talk to. So that's how
Mm.
my writing was birthed. And yeah.
But that's powerful, and I appreciate it because it sounds like your mind shift of from, like you said, fixed to growth started you, pushed you into now this new space of like an entirely different way of expressing yourself. So, tell me about that journey of just even like beginning to be a writer. It's an interesting thing. I think it takes something from you, but it also gives something to you. So, what was that process for you?
Okay, and one thing that I'm learning on this healing journey is that whenever you feel like you've reached a new level of evolution, you're going to constantly still have to continue to heal on the next level. So even though I started this journey at in 2013, I was still in a space where I felt like everything was just wrong. Everything went from bad to worse every day, and I was just in darkness. Even though I would wear a smile on my face, nobody on the outside knew what I was going through because everything was internally. Everything that I was going through, I was holding it in. You know, because I didn't have an outlet. I didn't have anyone to talk to about my concerns. And if I did, they kind of just like brushed me off. You know what I mean? Like, oh, it's not a
Mm.
big deal. And because like they may have had something else they were going through also. So basically, how my writing was birthed, I just felt like I needed um, to share what I was going through. You know what I mean? And first, I was writing very just privately, writing my thoughts. I'm really big on journaling. So when I was just writing my thoughts down, um, somebody shared with me back in 2013, 2014 that I should open up and share with others. And I said, no, these are my personal thoughts. It's a very vulnerable place. And I didn't feel comfortable to really share until I would say the pandemic, you know? And then during the
Mm.
pandemic, my spirit told me, if you consider yourself a poet and writer, how do you expect other people to hear your work, to get to know who you are and everything? So I said, my spirit kept telling me, give yourself permission to shift. So as a child, I never considered myself to be a writer, but I noticed that like I am good at this, you know. So I
Mm.
developed this gift later in life, and that's okay. Sometimes we have to go through our trials to come across our gifts and to use, you know, like our pain. I like to say I use my pain as purpose, as my passion now.
I love it. It's beautiful. Pain is purpose for certain. And I, you know, the way you frame that, you gave yourself permission to shift, which is so different from where you were before when you described the idea of focusing on your doubts, focusing on what you didn't have, and that was calling attention. So when you give yourself permission to shift and you change your focus,
Mm-hmm.
what started to change for you with that? Like, what was there more? Was there a snowball to that shift for you in that growth?
For me, like from 2013 2020, it was just 7 years. Like it's like I was still, you know, writing and everything, but it was really just privately, you know. But like my heart kept yearning to go on stage, but I had so much fear and anxiety that I was like, I can't do this. You know what I mean? I can't put myself out there. I don't want to look stupid. I care. And to this day, I really still care a lot about what other people think. But now I'm looking at it from a standpoint, if I can reach one person in the audience to share my story, then that means that I'm doing something. And now I'm all about peace, love, and abundance. You know what I mean? So if we focus so much on the negative, then that's what we're going to continue to attract. So I had to really reverse my thinking and focus on the positive because that's what I want to attract in my life, So um, I'm still, afraid. You're putting yourself out there. This is a very vulnerable, personal part of my life, but I'm noticing that it does open up opportunities
Mm.
to share your story because you can help somebody else that may be going through something very similar.
And that requires bravery.
Absolutely.
Right. Being vulnerable is a very brave thing. We often frame it as a weakness, but in fact, it's probably the strength in us that allows us to be vulnerable and share with others with that vulnerability. Like just being vulnerable with ourselves is one layer, but then to put it out there, to get on stage, to speak. So, what was that first experience of actually being in front of people and sharing your story?
Um, it was extremely nerve wracking. It was extremely nerve wracking the first time I went on stage, but then it was also very liberating because people are still going to clap for you, regardless. But people will come up to me at the end of the show and say, I love what you did. Your story is something like mine. And they would thank me, and I'm like, why are you thanking me? Like I'm the one on stage, but they really thanked me for putting myself out there. So it gives me like the desire to keep going. And
Mm.
I stopped performing because of life situations, but then also because of that fear of being on stages. It's very nerve wracking. And somebody told me recently, do it afraid, you know, do it afraid because you're only holding yourself back. If my higher power, I'm very spiritual. So if God gives me that idea and I keep holding on to it, then that means like, how can I use that gift that He birthed in me? So I have to do it afraid.
Mm. That's big. That's big because I think when we're afraid is when we don't do things.
Exactly.
So that's a very bold shift in thinking about things to do it afraid. I love that. I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna carry that one. I love it. And you have so many gems of advice that we're gonna get into because this then so you got up, you did it afraid, you got in front of people, but now you have a book. So, how did all of that lead into this, which is not just Walk Confident into your new season, but it is a guide to build your spiritual and mental muscle. So, you are not only just sharing a story, but you're guiding people to unpack there. So, tell us more about the birth of this lovely piece.
Okay. So I started writing poetry, like I stated, 10 years ago. And I published my first book in 2015, a children's book. So I thought I was just going to be a children's author. And then fast forward a few years later, I was trying to write another children's book. This is now in like 2019. And I just kept shooting blanks, like I just had a serious case of writer's block. Nothing was coming. So then my spirit was like, you're going to write a faith based self help book. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Like, I'm not doing that. I didn't want to publish my poems. I was still a little bit afraid of like, really putting it out there for people to really see me, of who I'm becoming. Um, and I thought about it, I prayed over it, and I said, you know what, I'm going to. So during the pandemic, I actually started with writing and publishing the book, and it was published in 2021 with this book. But I just kept feeling a urge, necessity to publish this book and to go in a different direction. So perhaps the
Mm.
children's book will come, but I just had to go on where my spirit was leading me, and that's where I wrote this book and published it. And it's really like a journey. Like the poems that I have in my book, I put the year of it so that way people can see, okay, this is not just like during the pandemic. It's like a journey and it's ongoing.
I love that. So, and actually, tell us a little bit just about because the structure is very intentional and a lot of components to it. So, um, as a faith-based help book, that is faith-based help book, yes, self-help book. it, what compelled you to design it the way you did? Because I think that was really interesting. It kind of struck me is there's a lot of intentionality in that.
Okay. So I feel like healing, there has different levels, different stages when it comes to healing, right? So the beginning stage is you're healing, you're going through the process, and I broke my book into three different areas. I don't necessarily call it chapters. I broke it into areas. So it's broken into three different parts: healing, peace, and then elevation. So on my journey, I talk about healing first, and then in each component, each part, there's scriptures, there's devotion, and then there's like a personal experience as well as poems throughout the book, and then questions to guide you on your journey so that way you can write inside the book and reflect in the book with some questions. So, healing, and then the next area is peace. I include scriptures, questions to guide you, and then also in the next area, which is elevation.
Mm.
Mhm.
And that's like as I was reading, it does really layer that process, right? Because you have this narrative of here's Miatta's journey, right? And then here's this faith connection that for those who that's important, right? And it is important for you and it's important to your readers that that element really adds this layer. And then there's the journals, right? So like now after I've read your story and I've looked at the scriptures and you've connected me to the scriptures and the connection to your story, it's me thinking about myself. What is my journey? What do I need to reflect on? It's a beautiful layout. And I want to step back a little bit because I think it's going to be really important for our readers to understand more about what it is that you struggled with. And you talked about how you had this picture of your life, right? But in that picture, what were some of the big pieces that were your sources of pain that you needed to move through?
Okay. I would say the biggest thing for me was when it came to like stability. And I even talk about it in one of my poems. It's not in my book, unfortunately, but it's about, taking parts of your life and knowing that you can turn around for something good. So everything that happens in our life, even if it's something that's not the best part of your story, is going to be turned around for your good. So I always had like a narrative, a vision of how my life was supposed to be since I was a child. Like I knew I wanted to be an educator, a teacher. I've been teaching 15 years, but for some reason within the last like 5+ years, my heart's just not in it. You know what I mean? In this career that I went to school for to do, and I'm like, why is my heart not in this anymore? Like I dread it. Like, and I'm just like, why do I feel this way when this is all that I've ever wanted to be? So it was just so many different aspects of my life. Personally, I was in a situation where I thought that relationship was going to turn into marriage, and then I developed the spirit of comparison towards um, my peers who were in serious relationships like I was, but they were now married and I wasn't married. They now have children and I didn't have children. So I just felt like my worth was heavily based off of societal expectations. When you're in your 20s and 30s, now that you finish school, you have to get married. You have to have a job. You have to, that like. You have to do all these things. And what happens if those things are not working the way that you thought it would based off of societal expectations? So it really
Mm.
caused me to just develop like severe like anxiety and worry. Like where is my life going? But during that hardship, I noticed that I developed a new gift, a new love of writing, and I never had that before. So I just feel like sometimes things that happen is really going to turn around for something good, and I feel like
Mm.
when I share my story or when I'm on a stage, even though I'm afraid, but it's very like, it's very refreshing, you know what I mean? Because it's
Mm-hmm.
like it gives me life, and I don't feel that when I'm in a classroom anymore. So that's why
Well,
I noticed that like I'm shifting and it's okay to change direction.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that because that's the key, right? It's okay. it's okay to shift when you realize that we outgrow things, we move to
Right.
different spaces, we move in different directions, and it sounds like you really allow for, and you've said it many times, right? The spirit moved you, right? So you allow for something deeper to guide you in this path,
Mhm.
which is powerful and important, I think, and important to elevate. And so as you're thinking about that, and you mentioned this idea of you said it's societal expectations.
Mhm.
There's a lot of elements in your book that kind of talk about that in different terms. So for example, you were just talking about one of your pain being this shift of being an educator to not seeing your love and passion in it anymore. And you talk about the idea of a job versus an assignment.
Mhm.
Is there a connection between that language and what you were going through, and how does it all kind of come together for you?
Oh, that's a great question. Thank you so much for asking. And I'm a very reflective person. So, when I was really writing this book back in 2019, 2020, questions just kept coming to me. And I was like, okay, maybe I need to answer these questions and then, you know, place it in my book so that way, I can help with guiding somebody else with that question. So, a
Mm.
lot of times when we have a job, is your job, is it something that includes your passion in it? You know what I mean? So often people ask, like, what do you do? So of course we tell them, but then now I like to ask, what do you like to do? You know what I mean? Because I feel like sometimes your
Yeah.
passion may not necessarily be what you're doing, in the daytime, so I would love for it to, combine and mesh, and I'm sure it will. I'm really big on manifesting what you want in your life and just being patient for it to happen, and that's something that
Hmm.
society, they want, expectation wise, societal expectations, they want things to happen like this, bam, bam, bam. But when you're healing, when you're going through that journey, it's not supposed to happen swiftly. You know what I mean? It's a race. And that's why they call it a journey, because it takes years and time to fully develop your gift.
Yeah, it's a marathon, not a sprint, right? And definitely. And I love that you elevated the idea, right? It's not supposed to happen fast. It's actually dangerous if it happens fast because we probably aren't doing it right.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said at the very beginning, right? It's not an it's not an end point either. It's a constant evolution and a constant revisiting of it. So in that constant, right? That means that probably there are moments of pain that still creep up, right? There are moments and things that happen. I kind of elevated some lines that I pulled up in your book, but what are some of the lines or the moments or the elements of your book that you lean into in those moments when you're feeling that pull to kind of, going back in that direction of pain? Because it happens to all of us, right?
Absolutely. And sometimes, like when we're going through life, we may put our things, like our feelings, our emotions, on the back burner, and we think that, oh, it's been resolved because maybe I don't have to deal with that right now, the situation. But then when somebody like reminds you of that situation, you may get triggered. You know what I mean? And I'm
Mm.
noticing that when I'm getting triggered, that means that I haven't dealt with it. I may have just put that on the back burner and moved on with, whatever I have else going on in my, life or during that week. But it takes a lot to sit there and to, to think about what has caused you that pain, what is the root of that problem, so
Mm.
on my journey in the beginning, I did go speak to a therapist back in 2013 because it just wasn't, I just didn't have anyone to talk to. And at that time, I didn't go through insurance. I just paid out of pocket. And literally, my therapist told me, your gift is writing, and I was like, what? you know, I read to her a poem that I actually opened up in my book, Scared to Be What I'm Meant to Be. She said, keep doing
Mm.
it, don't ever stop. And then back in 2014, I felt like I still needed, some support. I felt like I needed a mentor, somebody to talk to when life just got really hard for me and I didn't know who else to turn to. So I did talk to life coaches also.
Mm.
So now that I've had life coach and therapy, some of my friends and colleagues ask me what's the difference between therapy and life coaching. And I say it's really up to you on your preference. I would say do both if you're in a position to do both. But it is important to be able to really figure out the root of that, because all that it is, it will help you to have a different perspective on when
Mm-hmm.
it comes
Mm-hmm.
to life. So I'm all about, doing that. So I don't know if I answered the question. I'm sorry. But I believe you had stated, is there a line in my poem that stands out to me?
Yeah. Any
So,
lines that you lean into?
in the book, I do have a poem entitled Flying with a Broken Wing. So I would say
Mm.
that line stands out to me, which flying, why am I still flying with a broken wing? So that means that, like, I want to do better. I feel like I can do better, but something, whether it's internally or externally, keeps pulling me back. So it's like a force that keeps pulling me back to the point where I feel broken. So for me, and it started in the classroom for me. Like, I would give my students a lot of affirmations, but then I realized, I said, you know what, I need to write affirmations for myself and personalize it. And it wasn't until really 2019 I felt like a shift in my spirit, and I was like, you know what, I need to really practice and go over my affirmations daily, and that's something that I can't do without. Like, I say it every day, and it really
Mm.
just helped to shape my mindset today.
Are there specific affirmations that you lean into in particular?
Um, it changes, but mainly, like, I would say, um, I am great. I'm going to have a great day. I am loved. I am respected. I can do anything. So it varies, but really just setting the tone of my day, it really does help
Mm.
greatly.
And there's so much power in that I think some people discount. Because one, it's one thing to read an affirmation; it's a whole nother thing to say it out loud, to hear the words, to hear yourself say the words, to look in the mirror and watch yourself say the words. Right? There's so much power in that, in owning your strength. Um, and you talk about this a lot. Like you use another phrase that kind of came out to me. Stop being afraid of your potential.
Mhm,
I feel like, and I feel a connection to you, because I would say I think there's this balance between flying and being broken at the
mhm,
same time,
right.
and trying to find your way, right? Because everybody's way is different, but your way of navigating through that and doing both with grace.
Absolutely.
How do you do that? Like, what is it? So you said the affirmations, and it's definitely your mindset shift, but are there other things that allow you to do that? Or maybe actually, you know what, actually I'm curious to know what's hard about that for you.
Um, for me, I would say in the beginning it was really difficult because, like you stated, like, it's hard to just say it when your mind, like for me, like my mind is always like all over the place. Like, I'm thinking about, as soon as I wake up, what I have to do for the day. I'm thinking about, even when I'm at work, what do I have to do when I get off
Mm-hmm.
work. So it's like my mind is constantly racing, and I'm noticing that that is a form of like anxiety, like overthinking, and just, so sometimes, like, I have to pause. And one thing that my life coach taught me is like deep breathing. You know what I mean? Take a moment to just pause and take a deep breath, and then go over your affirmations. So my previous job, I really didn't have those moments to myself to do that.
Yeah,
So,
education doesn't
but
give you moments to pause.
no, not at all.
It's a nonstop
So
job.
it was really difficult, but I had to, find that, even if it's 5 minutes, you know what I mean? 5 minutes
Mm-hmm.
just to say, you know what, I need to take this deep breath to just resurface and reset my day. So oftentimes people, and it's a learned practice. I had to learn this. But don't just wait for a Friday to say I'm going to be happy. You know what I mean? The end
Mm.
of the week. So because subconsciously you're telling yourself that the rest of the week is not going to be its best. You know what I mean? So it's like
Mm-hmm.
you have to start it. So Mondays, even though it's hard because it's the start of a new week, but I'm just like, okay, how about if I start changing the narrative and say, you know what, Monday's going to be the best part of my day, of the week. So, but it's a practice, and you have to do it consistently.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And it sounds like, and you have to make the space.
You have
You
to.
have to make the space with intentionality. And I love it because I think, Miatta, what you're elevating and what is so clear is that it's this understanding and love of self, like a genuine love of self, and recognizing that in that love of self, there's going to be moments where you might not, and you have to push yourself through it.
Absolutely.
Keep making that choice. Keep making that choice to heal, right? Like, and that means sometimes pushing yourself through that and still saying an affirmation, even though maybe you're in tears and you're sad and you're feeling defeated, right? So that's really important. But this has led you again to the book. But I want to talk about the book in terms of it is leading with love. So Pain to Power is all about this idea that people have taken their pain, turned it into power. But the profound part is that now you lead others.
Absolutely.
So you talked about performing in front of people and their responses. What has the response been for people as they've read this book, and what have you gained from hearing them take their takeaways?
Okay. So, like I stated in the beginning, this was a very personal story, dear to my heart. I never thought I was going to ever talk about it publicly. But then as I start to share my story, I would get like DMs in my social media. I would get emails where people were saying, wow, you have so much courage, and I just want to thank you. They would just constantly thank me for it and just telling me to keep going, and that I inspired them to want to, write. And they would tell me, they just don't have the time and their schedules to do it. And I tell them, I said, you know what, I've been there, and I'm still there. So I let them know that even
Mm,
if you don't have the time now, you will have the time, and your gift will make room for you. So I've been on this
mm,
journey for 10 years. I didn't have the time, and to be honest, I still don't. But I make it known to have to make time for it, for what I want. It
mm,
really does give me life. So just like when we have to eat, that's something that we have to do every day, so we have to get up, we have to do certain things every day. So that's how I kind of like include when it comes to my journaling. And I know you talked earlier about going to the gym. It's a decision, right? So I'm noticing like
yeah.
that's something I'm working on too. So I'm really big on working the internal as well, because and I'm really big with physical and mental, because when I feel good physically, I'm also feeling good mentally as well, and that just takes it gives me more energy. So
Yes,
yeah.
yes, and it is. It's right. It's external, internal. It's a
Yeah.
cyclical everything, right? It's all of us that we have to take care of, and keep putting and pouring into. You didn't. I mean, did you ever imagine yourself to be a leader? Like, was there a shift you kind of had to make in your own internal understanding of self to see yourself as someone other people were now looking at to get guidance from?
I've never seen myself this way, when I was younger, but now I'm like, okay, I am, like I am a leader. I am, a visionary. So even though like I don't see it now, I know that my spirit will open up the right doors for me to be able to lead. Like you stated, lead with love, lead with encouragement, and lead with abundance. And I noticed that like even my writing has shifted, because in the beginning of my journey, that's all I was writing was the pain. You know what I mean? Because that's all I could see at the
Mm,
forefront.
mm.
I couldn't get beyond that pain, so I had to get it out. I had to, and excuse my language, I do curse. I had to write that shit out. You know what I mean? So,
It's okay. It's okay. We're an adult show, so we can do
right. So
that.
I had to write it out, and that for me was very therapeutic. I felt very relieved. But I'm not saying there's not going to be moments where you just want to like get it out, But now I'm in a space where how can I turn this around, to turn something that was so detrimental at that moment. But what is the lesson? You know what I mean? So that's something that I always try to take out of it. What is the lesson, instead of saying, oh, I'm making a mistake, I'm fucking up, But
Mm,
no, look at it as a lesson that you're supposed to learn, And
mm,
if you keep going through it, then take a step back to think about, okay, what can I do that's differently, So because in one of the poems, um, I can't recall the title of it, but I did write it years ago, and it is in the book. However, I say, if you keep doing the same thing, how do you expect different results, right? So
that's the
you
truth, right? It's the definition of insanity,
right,
right? Like
doing the same thing,
doing the
you
same thing but
expect
expecting
different.
different results, right?
Exactly.
Um, Yeah, no, and I love that, and I was just thinking of this idea that you elevated in terms of um goodness, I just lost my thought. I
Okay.
apologize. You said something that ignited a thought in me and I lost it. It's gonna come back. It's
It
gonna come
will.
back.
It
It'll be all right.
will.
It'll come back. But I know. You were saying that you have to look at the lessons, right? The opportunities of a lesson. And it made me think of this idea of life is happening for you, not to you,
Mm-hmm.
right? So every challenge, every benefit, whether it's a reward or it's a challenge, right, is happening for you to gain something, to grow something, to learn something, and then to move from that, right, and then until the next one. um, and it's constant and it's beautiful. So you mentioned that you reached out to a therapist and to a life coach, but outside of those two individuals, who else inspires you?
Who inspires me? Now, can it be in general, or does it have to be
Yeah,
like an author or poet?
anybody who inspires you. It could be, I mean, for me, honestly, it's my daughter. So, I mean, I think inspiration comes wherever it comes for us, like it feeds our soul. So, who feeds your soul? Who gives you that you need to sometimes keep going, right? Because it's a lonely thing. And you mentioned that this journey can be at times lonely.
Okay, like I would say definitely my mom inspires me because she is definitely a leader at home and also with her community. She's a leader and she gives many people a lot of advice to keep going if life pushes you down. Like just you have to keep going and got to
Mm.
keep getting get back up. You can't stay down there too long and dwell on it. So that is something that she
Mm.
was, taught me over the years, and she does that in her community at work, in her church community as well. So she's definitely somebody that encourages me and others. And I will also have to say a lot of the poets in the DMV community, when I see them at open mics, it's all love. So I just love to see how they do their art and their expressions. It really does inspire me to want to continue in my craft.
I will have to concur with that. Definitely with the community of poets, right?
Yes.
And Mama, gotta give Mama's credits. I've got four, so I know, like that. It's not easy. It's not easy for certain. But that's a beautiful thing, and being a part of community and being a part of having family to connect with is always important because it can be lonely to
Right.
heal sometimes, and sometimes we need that alone time, and sometimes we need the community.
Absolutely.
Um, and so, like, in all that you've learned and all this journey, if you were to go back and talk to little Miatta, who didn't see herself as a leader, who didn't necessarily, who had this plan of
Right.
life, right? What would you say to her? Like, what do you think she could change or see differently that she didn't see that?
Wow, that's a great thought provoking question. Thank you. And if I had to tell my younger self something, I would definitely say don't be afraid to change directions. Don't be authentically yourself
Mm.
and don't feel like you have to wear a mask to fit in with society, to fit in with your peers. Is important to truly be yourself, and that's where true joy and true happiness comes from when
Mm.
you're authentically being yourself.
That's so true.
Hmm.
So true and so powerful. And I imagine if we told little selves that more often, what a difference it would make.
Right.
So as we are starting to kind of close out, I would love to know more about just how do people where do we find your book? And and actually, if there are any last words you have about what you want the audience to understand and know about your book that we haven't covered.
Okay. One thing that I would like to say at the end is that um, just know that even if you are in a space where you feel lonely, feel like you're in a space that nobody understands you, you're not by yourself. You're not alone. And there's people out there that understand what you're going through. You are seen and you are heard. So just know that there's love out there. So definitely speak to somebody if you are in a space where you feel like you are alone. Find somebody that an accountability partner or a trusted friend or somebody that can give you wise counsel. So I definitely encourage you to keep going and find reasons to smile. Even if it's hard, find a reason to smile.
I love it. And walk confidently into your new season, right? It's beautiful. And please go and get this book so that you can actually go through this process yourself and really start to reflect and think about that. So where do they go to get the book? And where do they go to follow you, to see you live? What's coming up for Miatta?
Well, you can go to my website, miattaharris.com, to get the book. And you can also go to Amazon. The book is on Amazon. You can follow me on my Instagram page, Miatta Harris 1. So there are other Miattas out there, but I am number 1. So I love to say that.
Love it. Own that.
Yes. And also upcoming projects that I have, I will be at open mics in DC and the Baltimore area. So I'll just be going to show some love at the open mics there. Busboys and Poets, Hyattsville, Columbia. You'll probably find me there.
I love it. And if we're following you on social media, we're going to see all of those things, which
Yes.
is fabulous. And all the links will also be below in the description, so you'll be able to check them out as well. Thank you so much, Miatta, for your time today. This was beautiful, and it was great to speak to you and learn about all the choices that you have made to continue your healing journey. And so thank you to everyone for joining us for this great conversation. And please remember to think about this idea of the choices that you have in front of you. How are you going to take those options and continue on this journey of healing? Whether it's those big mindset shifts that Miatta is guiding us through, or it's those small decisions of going to the gym at 5 in the morning, I will add, which is not an easy decision to make. So, but it's keeping me healing. It's keeping you healing. It's keeping us healing in community. And that is what this is about. So please make sure you follow Miatta, you get her book, and please follow me. I am, of course, as we've seen, I've got the show Pain to Power. We show every Sunday at 9 o'clock on the iRant Network, on Brown Girl Interrupting on YouTube, and on the Ranters Union on YouTube. You also can find Pain to Power as well as many other shows. I don't know, Miatta, if you have a Roku stick or a Roku TV, but you can find us on Roku. It's very exciting. Yes, go and download the iRant channel, and you will find Pain to Power and many other brilliant individuals with shows and topics that you are not going to want to miss to learn and grow and continue to build our community. And also, please go check out my writing at www.browngirlinterrupting.com and tune in for our next conversations on finding our pain in power. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Miatta, it's been lovely, and peace.
Thank you.
Love and light.
Okay.
My world has slowly crumbled around me countless times, and every time I rebuild with the pieces I've been given to birth something so transformational and beautiful that no one else knew might exist before it was shown to them. These moments tend to coincide within my romantic path. The universe has been telling me to focus on the revolution and not romance. It has over time given me the tools, resilience, and light to turn my pain into power. And only now do I see that the key to this always resided in the love and knowing I had in myself, not from the external sources of family or men. The message I have been avoiding might be that my time in this world I had existed in was not to receive love, but to put it out there for others to see, feel, and heal through. Revolution before romance moves pain into power.